raising women's voices,
one story at a time.
Welcome to the She Said Project podcast. Hello, friends. I'm Jenette Jerzyk, your host of the She Said Project podcast. I'm so glad you're here to explore women's stories with us and the power that comes when women support each other and lift each other up and raise their voices. And I wouldn't be sitting here if it were not for this woman right across the table from me, Kerry Rosso, my co-host. Lovely, lovely to see you, Kerry.
Well, thanks, Jenette, getting me all pumping me up. This is so nice. Well, this is so fun to do together. It's so fun.
I wouldn't be here if it weren't for this spark, this idea that you and your friends had, that if we created a space for women to be vulnerable and to share their stories, remarkable things could happen. And it's been like 13-ish years late, 12, 13, I don't know, 13 years later, a dozen years later. And it's just becoming more and more evident, you know, as we welcome more and more women into the She Said sisterhood, that simple idea, it stands the test of time. Like it keeps growing. It's a growing movement, really.
Well, I always say I feel weird taking any kind of credit for it because women have been telling stories since the dawn of time. The thing that we did that's different is we added a microphone, mm-hmm. you know, so my mom, my aunts, that I grew up listening to all of those stories and I loved it. And I saw the power of everyday women having someone to listen to them, because everything out there, you know, are you curing cancer? Are you a super duper movie star? Are you a whatever? And those are fun things to watch and keep up with. But the women that we really know who are the most impactful in our everyday lives, you know, it's that nurse that mm-hmm. got us through, that brought us the ice packs. You know, it's all of those little everyday moments. Those are the women that are really making the world go round.
And the stories that make it to the She Said stage are quite often the subjects that we really don't talk about every day. We don't talk about certain things just over lunch. Mm-hmm. There are certain topics that are just not meant for everyday discussion. And the beauty of That's What She Said is we give women permission. We give them a microphone, but we give them permission to talk about some of those taboo topics and normalize them. We really should be more comfortable talking about women's health, women's bodies, women's issues in a way that makes us feel like we're all more alike than we are different.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that's the beauty of not just what they say on the stage, but the beautiful thing that happens in these casts is the cast gets so close with each other. And sometimes they're saying things to the rest of the cast that maybe they don't want to say from the stage. So they have the microphone to share a beautiful story on the stage. And then the stuff that happens in the green room or that happens in those rehearsals, I mean, I've revealed some of the raunchiest things I've ever done. Sorry, Mom. But in the green room, like really, but did you ever? It's so great. Or there are things like, this one is so raw and painful for me, I'm not ready to talk about it on the stage, but I, you know, fill in the blank with something that was really hard to get through. So the stage is just the end part. But all of that lead up and those weeks and months before, that's really where the bacon is, seeing and hearing those stories then.
You are so correct. And you said bacon, which caught my attention.
Bacon.
But very often I say to the women as they're going through their story development process, just because you share it in rehearsal doesn't mean it's going to make it to the stage. But sometimes you have to share the absolute darkest piece of the story to discover what really are the words that need to be said. And so you're right. We have a beautiful confidentiality, a vault, if you will, where women can explore topics, and doesn't mean we're gonna put it on the internet. We're gonna tell the world, but it's part of the process. And our guest today was so it's a delicate show to talk about because it was the last show before COVID-19. You know, this show went up on stage February 22nd, 2020. Like, do the math right there. February 20th, 22nd. It was like the last week of February 2020. And we had no idea what was coming, you know, in just a few weeks. This group of women just they took to the stage. We laughed together. We cried together. And our guest today, and I'm about to introduce her, she and I have been friends a very long time, and I know a lot of her stories. And I said to her, when it's time and when you're ready, you tell me if these are the stories we're going to share, because I know a lot of what she's lived through. And not only did she share some of those hardest, darkest things on the She Said stage, but she said yes to coming back to watching them again and talking about them again. And I'm just going to say probably because we need to. We need to have spaces where women can talk about hard things. So my friend Bridget KO, as you would know her in the She Said vault, now Bridget Martinie, because she has been happily married since she was on our stage, is here in the studio with us. Hi, Bridget.
Hi.
Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I'm very excited. Hi.
There's been some stories in your life since. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
There's been lots of updates.
Lots. So much
Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's lovely to see you. But I wanted to give your maiden name so if people go digging for you in the She Said archives, they know how to find you.
Congratulations on the marriage, but I would marry anybody who would give me the last name Martini.
I almost brought us mock martinis.
Oh, yeah. Immediate yes.
Today we celebrate our friend, Mrs. Martinie. Yes.
Nice.
Mrs. Martinie.
So
I'm a drink.
congratulations. Yeah, I love that.
Okay.
Congratulations. Okay, so let's go way back. So how did it happen that you became I am a speaker on the She Said stage?
Jenette gently hounded me.
Okay, that
Very
doesn't
gently.
go together.
Very
Jeanette gently hounding me.
Hounded me.
Something doesn't add up.
Well, she said, I think this would be a really good story, like multiple times. And I'm like, yeah, no, I feel like I'm in the middle of like this. My whole life was a forest fire. I felt like there was just so many different things that were going on. And I was like, yeah, I don't think this is the one. And I'm in the middle of the ick, like for a few years. Like I just really had a rough few years. And then there were some changes that happened in like in 2019. And then I finally said, okay, I think I'm ready. Like early in 2019. And that's how it happened.
So I may have
said, okay, I'm
been
ready.
witness, had a front row seat to some of her stories that were
Gut-wrenching.
the ick, I guess, to quote you, and we look at women in our lives who get a challenging hand dealt to them. And, you empathize, you reach out, what can I do? How can I help? And Bridget is one of the strongest women I know. Once you've heard her stories but she's also one of the kindest and most considerate and giving and special women I know. And so I think it was a kind of a mutual agreement that it was time, right?
Yeah.
It was time. And here we are we're being super vague. And our friends who are listening today are like, what are they talking about? What are they talking about? We're going to share your story in a few minutes, but are you willing to give our friends just an outline of where your story came from?
Sure.
Yeah.
So growing up, I had kind of a rough childhood. My mom was a good mom. She made she had some struggles and fear. So didn't always protect me in the way that I should have been protected. And then from that, I knew that when I grew up, I wanted to have a family. And I wanted to have lots of babies. And I knew that I would be a really great mom and that I would always protect my children. So that's really
that's the backstory.
Yeah, that's the backstory. And then I went through life, and I was A plus. I was stellar at getting pregnant. I'm really great at getting pregnant.
That's a good time.
I'm amazing at that. But I had 8 pregnancies, 2 living biological children, 6 losses, and Jenette and I met during my last loss, and we didn't know it. We were pregnant at the same time. And then a year later, actually hot off the heels of that loss of Gabriel, I made the decision to go through foster care and be a foster parent from another friend that we met on, and she's actually not a She Said sister, but she's a sister of a She Said sister. Melissa Friedman told me to not let foster care scare me.
Really?
Yeah, we were on campus one day, and we were in a parking garage, and she said, if you really want to be a foster parent, go ahead and do it. Don't let that scare you.
What a powerful moment.
So it was really good. So I went through all of the classes, got licensed, and became a foster parent. I had a couple short-term placements, and then I got my forever daughter, and we're going to hear all about it.
I know. It's like I want to talk about, because I know things and I want you to share, but you're right. There's so much goodness in the story, how it unfolds, that we don't want to give it all away. But before we cut to the tape, how are you today?
I'm amazing.
Yeah?
Shortly after the show, so I went through a breakup of, I had to get rid of dead weight.
We're not going to go there?
I went through a breakup during all of our practices leading up to That's What She Said. And like a month after She Said, on the day that COVID shutdown happened, I went on my first date with my now husband. We met in a Meijer parking lot, and we ate Chick-fil-A before we went to battle the masses for groceries and toilet paper at Meijer.
That was your first date?
That was our first date. We were like, the world's shutting down. We don't know when we're going to be able to see each other.
Chicken and toilet paper.
Yeah.
Check. Okay.
Chick-fil-A and toilet paper. And the rest is history.
And here you are today. So much has happened since 2020. I mean, in our world, the show went virtual. We came back. I'm so happy to say, we're thriving. But it is a different energy. Live events and live shows, completely different energy, pre and post. And so you were one of those. Your show was one of those last events where, people showed up in force. And did you feel the energy in the audience that night?
It was crazy.
Yeah.
I think you'll see, like at the very beginning, someone yelled my name. And you're not supposed to really regard the audience. And I was like,
hey,
who was that?
Well,
how do you know my name?
That's What She Said is a little different in that we're not afraid to respond to what's coming at you from the audience.
I don't think we've ever had a show where there was not at least one call and repeat or heckle. I think every show.
I think half the time it's you.
It might have been me.
It might have been you.
Okay, fine. But that's what makes it great, is you love that energy that people are.
Yeah, it was great. It was just unexpected, and it will throw somebody off if they're not.
It's true.
Yeah.
And sometimes those are the best moments, though, because She Said speakers are not actors, performers, polished speakers most of the time. And to watch a woman in real time, like, react to something that's happening, that's the magic of live theater. Yeah. And some of our best moments have come out of those. So, but we'll get to see your reaction to the unexpected. So we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we'll enjoy Bridget's story. I'm so glad you're here with us on the She Said Project podcast, because this is a story you don't want to miss. Our guest today is Bridget Martinie, who appeared on stage in That's What She Said, Champaign-Urbana 2020. And here is her story, My 20-Year Pregnancy. Enjoy.
Laura Bush writes in her book, Spoken from the Heart, the English language lacks the words to mourn an absence. For the loss of a parent, grandparent, spouse, child, or friend, we have all manner of words and phrases, some helpful, some not. Still, we're conditioned to say something, even if it's only, I'm sorry for your loss. For an absence for someone who was never there at all, we are wordless to capture that particular emptiness. For those who deeply want children and are denied them, those missing babies hover like silent, ephemeral shadows over their lives. Who can describe the feel of a tiny hand that is never held? For as long as I can remember, I've always wanted a large family, full of children close in age, healthy, loving life, and full of joy. My children would know that they were loved and cherished, and they would never worry for their safety and security. In the same way that I longed for a large family of my own, I harbored a yearning to protect at-risk children. Children who had been abandoned, hurt, and abused because I knew that very reality growing up. My parents divorced, and my father eventually severed ties to me. It was my stepfather who came into our home and stole my security and safety away when he began molesting me from the age of 7 to the age of 11. At that point, his abuse turned from sexual to emotional, physical, and psychological, and it continued through my teen years. I only shared this part of my story to show you where my deep-seated need to protect, love, nurture, and celebrate children comes from, and how it became such a driving force in my life. Growing up, I knew my mother's love. And yet I also knew that she feared the reality and instability of raising me in a single parent household, where she struggled to provide basics like maintain our rent, utilities, and put food on the table. By the age of 18, I had escaped. I was married, and I was eager to start my own family. I was ready to welcome children into my home and heart. And I'd show them the love and security every child should be allowed to feel. My husband and I had 2 children. The joy of being a new mother was both amazing and exhausting. While many of my friends were out living their best single lives or off to college, I had settled into my little house in the same small town, Wilmington, Illinois, and I busied myself raising the children, as well as my bonus child, my brother-in-law, that came into our home when I was 19 and he was 9. That's a whole different story and not mine to tell today. It took 20 years to feel like I was complete, or like my family was complete. My son Logan is about to turn 28. My middle daughter Caitlin is 26. And my youngest, Hannah, is 6. There have been many in between. At times it feels like Hannah was the result of a 20-year pregnancy. In order to explain how my beautiful youngest daughter came into my life, I must first give a little context. Of course, I was not physically pregnant for 20 years. That's longer than an elephant. God bless those mamas, 18 months. I've been physically pregnant a total of 8 times. I have 2 living biological children. I couldn't understand then or adequately explain now the feeling that I had when looking around my table, constantly feeling like someone was missing, counting out the wrong number of dinner plates, and the sorrow that I felt knowing that I'd have to replace the ones not to be used. Please know, I don't regret any of my pregnancies or losses. In a funny way, I know those children were meant to be in my family too. My third born, my son Alexander, was my first loss. It was a soul-crushing heartbreak that I thought I would never heal from. I walked away from my faith for the better part of a decade. Don't get me wrong, I believed in God, but I was really angry. I felt hurt, I felt abandoned, and I felt alone. And I fell further and further away from God and my dream of a complete family each time I held a child and hello meant goodbye. As I strove to understand why this loss was all part of my life and all part of my walk, I also began to pursue God. And this began a redemption story of sorts. In my final loss with my son Gabriel in the summer of 2012, I knew without a doubt that that was the last child I was going to carry. Almost 18 years after my first loss, I knew I wouldn't be completing my family in that way, and I was at peace with that fact. I also knew without a doubt that I would have more children, and they'd come to me in many different ways. Biology wasn't everything. The most important fact was the love that I was filled with that had nowhere to go, and the children that needed to be loved. That led me toward foster care. I attended pride classes and fielded worried questions from well-meaning friends and family. What are you going to do if you have to give the child back? Or how can you handle the hurt and loss of losing another baby? Most of all, I responded with is my feeling that loss more important than a baby's need or a child's need to feel safe and heard and loved and above all wanted? Every single time I answered no. My adult self should be able to process and provide sacrificial love. So I pushed through and I jumped the hoops I needed in order to get licensed. Right before the first anniversary of Gabriel's due date in December of 2013, I received the call. That morning, a tiny, unassuming little girl was placed into my arms. As she stretched and yawned, I heard the whisper almost audibly, "Say hello to your daughter." As my heart said hello to my beautiful, precious, sleepy little girl for the very first time, we were told in the beginning that she would probably be a temporary placement, maybe just a couple weeks through the holidays. But the days and weeks gave way to months. And I began to realize that the whisper that I heard, that was God. And this little girl was his plan for me all along. Holding my daughter Hannah, I felt that God had completed my family as promised, and I couldn't imagine my life any other way. Hannah's the fulfillment of all that had been on my heart since I was a child. In the summer of 2015, at 18 months old, Hannah's adoption was finalized. Hannah has a deep faith. She has a contagious laugh, and she loves big. Some of her favorites are her big sissy Caitlin, sometimes me, and her friends. But most of all, her Lammy. She's an adventurer at heart and always ready to travel. Lammy, too. Every day, I thank God that her birth mother chose life. I thank him even and especially for the brokenness that brought us together. Now I look around my dinner table and I see empty chairs for different reasons as her older siblings are out conquering their dreams as adults. As for Hanny and me, well, we've settled into life as a mommy-daughter duo, and we're ready to greet each day with a smile. Although, as a side note, kindergarten, so much different than it was 20 years ago.
Wow, Bridget. Watching your story again, I feel a little guilty that I didn't give our listeners, our audience, a little bit more of a warning. I mean, you did share, the backstory, but pregnancy loss. Let's just say it what it is. That's the whole point. Is we're afraid. We're afraid to say these words out loud. Mm-hmm. And what happens when you do say it? You find out that there are so many more women who have had experiences and are relieved that you're willing to talk about it with them. Did you find that was the case after you told your story?
Absolutely. I actually had people approach me that night at the after party, and even when I was walking through the theater, I had people stop me and give me hugs or shake my hand and say, thank you for being brave enough to share something that I've been struggling with for years and I haven't talked to anybody. So I hope that women destigmatize our bodies and the struggles that we can sometimes have with loss. The other stuff in my story, I mean, tough stuff, Sorry for not giving you guys, we forgot about the trigger warning for sexual molestation.
Yeah.
Like having to deal with those kind of things. Those are big things. And it's hard. And I think that women should be able to say, yeah, that happened to me, but that's not what defines me. That's not who I am.
No. You are, for lack of a better term, a poster child for a woman who has lived through some stuff, but that's not who you are. That's not your story. You shared your story that night because it was important to say it out loud, but that's not who you are when you walk through this world. Like, I see you with your grown children and your daughter who is, I'm so happy for you going through those teen years right now, because I've got one of those too. And
Tween. We are not teen yet.
Yeah, no, there's plenty more
as
of
much as
that
she wants
torture to come. I get it. No. But I've actually gotten to witness, that part of your story too. Watching you literally from, I think, the week that you brought Hannah home, and through the journey of adoption, and this, she is a tall, beautiful young lady today, and it is a joy to know her. But something you said in your story that I think a lot of women can relate to, that because of the pain that you suffered as a young person, you had a vision for what family should look like. And that was what was on your heart when you set out to get married and start your family. Like, you had a vision of a table full of children, at the dinner table every night. And you were not alone in, women who've had the vision of what it could look like, and women who have had to redefine what family looks like, in their journey. And so I thought that was such a crystal clear way of telling your story that women could relate to.
Yeah. Well, and everybody can relate to, we've all have this vision or a script that we think we're going to follow, or the way things are going to go. And then life happens and it doesn't follow the script, or things, you have to pivot. And
life can be a real jerk sometimes.
Right. You don't seem like somebody, I don't know who it is that seems that way, because everybody has stuff, but you have remained so, I don't know if it's intentional for you, but you're so positive and encouraging and happy. And you have, you would have every reason to really, struggle.
Be on the bitter bus.
Yes, I enjoy the bitter bus. And
I learned from a young age, because I saw people that had tough stuff happen, that did ride the victim train, right? And I was victimized. I am not a victim.
Mm-hmm.
I had things that happened that were out of my control, but that does not define who I am and what I stand for. What I stand for is actually the opposite. I remember the same stepfather that abused me actually ended up adopting me when I was 11 years old. or 12 years old, the adoption went through, which was, a whole nother layer of screwed
Yes.
up. But I remember him jokingly one time trying to give me parenting advice when I was pregnant. And I said, I don't want to be disrespectful, because I was definitely kind of like this, I want to keep the peace. But we were on the phone, so I had a certain amount of gumption. Felt like I could say what I wanted to say. Yeah. But from you, I have learned everything I do not want to do as a parent. So thank you for that. But I will not be taking your parental advice.
Wow.
In this moment.
Wow. That is
So,
strength right
a
there.
lot of, I think that things that have happened to you, then you're able to advocate for yourself. And maybe that was like one of the first times, the phone gave you that.
Emotional distance.
Yeah.
Years of therapy too.
Sure,
Let me
yeah.
just plug that, because there was a season of my life for about 3 years that I was going every single week. And that's good. I mean, when you can't make sense of the stuff and you're stuck in the things and it's triggering you and you don't know why, it's good to be able to find somebody, not just a therapist, but find somebody that's really going to hold your feet to the fire. Somebody that's going to be willing to be unpopular. You can have your girlfriends that are going to be your yes girls, but you need to have somebody that's going to do the work with you and be. I remember my therapist, I love her. I was so angry at her because I said, my mom's a good mom. And she was like, oh, but that one time? Was she? That was like this failure that happened. And it was important for me to be able to go back and think about that and say, well, yeah, my mom was still a good mom, but she did have moments, and this one was a glaring one. This was the one thing. And I will tell you that my mom on her deathbed was apologizing to me for this moment.
Really?
And I, at that point, didn't realize that's what the I'm sorry was for. I thought she was apologizing for his abuse. And I said, you don't have to apologize for what he did to me. So I took that apology away from her because I didn't even realize in my mind, I wasn't able to really wrap. And I think that after therapy, I was able to realize what my mother was actually saying to me days before she died, was that she was sorry that she didn't protect me.
All right, pass the tissues. They're around here somewhere. So what I'm hearing is in the relationship between your mom and you as a grown-up woman, you were able to get some closure. In infant loss or pregnancy loss, what I am familiar with and have heard is that the biggest struggle is that there's really no sense of closure, right?
There's not.
So I want to talk about that for a minute. Like, how do you? Let's talk about your first loss, and then what gave you the strength to try again.
Alexander Jeffrey was born October 11th of 1995. He was tiny, and I held him as he died in my arms. They woke me up, actually, at the hospital, and I thought that they were bringing my baby to me, and my husband at the time had to tell me that I didn't understand that he wasn't going to make it and that I needed to say goodbye. So I was, 1995. So I was 24 years old, and 23 years old, and I was finding out that my baby wasn't going to make it. The problem that I had was like a blood issue, like I had antibodies built up to the blood type. So any future pregnancies were going to be terrible, potentially. And I knew at that time that that would probably be my last baby. And so that was hard. Like, being so young, I had Logan and Caitlin were like, I had evenly spaced oopses, let's just be clear. I did not plan my first 3 children for sure. But they were born, or I was pregnant with Logan. I had him March 3rd of 92. I got pregnant and had Caitlin. She was due March 2nd of 92. I had her January 15th of 92. Each pregnancy got worse. I was 3 weeks early with Logan. I was 6 weeks early with Caitlin. I was 14 weeks early with Alexander. And each pregnancy got worse from there. I was not a glutton for punishment. The other pregnancies happened when I was no longer in my marriage and I was in a different marriage. So the other pregnancies were when we thought that there were no issues. And my final one was when we actually went through infertility treatments and had donor insemination. And unfortunately, Gabriel was born sleeping. So he was my third loss. My third born loss. Does that make sense? I guess. Mm-hmm. My baby that I had to bury, which is terrible. But I would say it doesn't, like, loss doesn't get better, but the same way that water runs over rocks and smooth surfaces, time runs over the memories and they become smoother. And you can look back and you can appreciate those moments that you got, and you can know, hopefully, faith is a big thing for me. So whether, I feel like everybody has faith, whether you have faith in yourself and what you can accomplish, or faith in a higher power. My faith is in God. And I know that God doesn't do things to harm us because he is our Father in heaven and he wants us to be cherished. We are called, chosen, beloved, cherished. And he doesn't bring that to us, but he will redeem every single loss. And he counts the tears and he knows the hairs on our head. So I know that my God had an end game. He knew that the same God that gave me the desire in my heart to have a large family, to have and I knew that I was like plagued with this extra plate syndrome. It was not a joke. It wasn't a story. That was life. It got to the point that Caitlin would say, "I'll take that, Mommy," and she would put it back and not even realize why I had one too many plates. But for years, it was like a running joke that I had too many plates, one too many, every single time. So I think that is really kind of what resonates with me, is that I know that it's incredibly painful. And it's okay when you're in that moment and to be in the struggle and to say, this sucks. But I promise, if you're in that moment, it gets better. It gets different.
It sounds, Bridget, like you did find closure.
I did.
And it's going to look different for everyone going through a similar loss. But I feel a sense of peace from you. I feel your closure, and it is beautiful. I want to hug you right now. So we're going to take a break so we can process, and we'll be right back.
Okay.
Well, friends, thank you for being here with us on the She Said Project podcast. We are having a very powerful conversation with Bridget Martinie about the story she shared on stage. And that's what she said, 2020. Now, you called it your 20-year pregnancy, and you did make the joke about how pregnant are elephants? What's their gestation?
18 months.
18 months. And
Long time.
yeah, no, God bless those mamas, like you said. But, in the course of 20 years, you experienced pregnancy so many times with one goal in mind, to build your family. And I'm going to quote you. I'm going to quote you back to you. What you did not do, in spite of your losses, you did not get on the victim train to the bitter bus. But here you are today, a whole woman who has found her family. Mm-hmm. And so I wanted to talk about that for a moment. So you made the decision to go into foster to adoption, mm-hmm. to complete your family.
I did. Probably the hardest step in that process was I had my computer open and I had on Amazon. I had to buy another crib. And I had been in that loss, like the last 6 times I thought about buying cribs or had a crib, I had to deconstruct a nursery, and I felt like I was making this Field of Dreams nursery. And I can't remember, I was sharing earlier with your assistant, like I can't remember whether I was on the phone with you or one of our other friends, but I remember thinking, I just gotta push the button. And I finally pushed the button. And I was like, well, it's gonna be here in like 3 days. So I guess I'll be putting a crib together. But it was hard. I mean, there were steps that I had to fight myself through every single step of the way to get to Hannah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. She is a joy. She is a little bit more tweenager than the super sassy, cute kindergartner. But she's good. She loves people. She loves performing. She's kind of she made her own YouTube channel, and I had to kind of slow her roll a little bit, and we had to talk about what was okay to share and what was not okay to share.
Slow her roll.
But yeah, so she's doing well. She's really great. We have relocated after I got married in 2024. We relocated to a lake community, and so she loves like being out. Bless her heart, she's probably dealing with a little bit of issues because it's not very urban at all, and so there's not a lot of what's the word I'm looking for?
Activity?
No.
Civilization? No.
There's not a lot of diversity in our community. So, I mean, it's very interesting. So she's had like a whole new wave of having to teach people gently not to touch her hair and stuff like that. So she's doing well. She's really well adjusted. She's loving life. Until the end of this school year, I was still driving her about an hour every day to go to school because I kept her in her school. She stayed in a private school here in town. So, yeah.
So the one thing that seems to be very constant in your world is change. Transition.
Yeah.
And, I mean, that builds up some resilience in a woman, don't you think?
Yeah, maybe.
Well, and I think everybody, whatever stage we're at, and the people we love, we're grateful for them and we have gratitude. Mm-hmm. But I think when you've gone through the traumas that you've gone through, mm-hmm. do you feel like you have like a heightened sense of gratitude and awareness for what you have now?
I think I'm really blessed through it all. I think that just in the last 5 years, the amount of change, like after That's What She Said, I met my now husband. I bought my first home as a single woman. I sold my first home as a single woman. I during the time that I was a single mom, I maintained my kid in private school. That's hard stuff. It's really hard. Hannah has dealt with a diagnosis of, she has a pretty severe form of dyslexia. So we have dealt with that, extra tutoring, like all of the things. I feel like life has changed, but I think my not willing to make excuses for poor behavior translates to a kid that is very dialed in and trying her hardest and showing up through hard things every single day in her schoolwork. I think that if I am leading her well and by example, that's really what I'm here to do. It was my childhood dream, and now I'm just walking it out.
Well, I want to know more about the reactions that you got from your friends and family about you standing on a stage and being this vulnerable. We're going to take a quick break and jump right back in.
Okay.
So Bridget, first of all, it's lovely to see you and hear from you again and get caught up on, everything that you've been living through since your experience with That's What She Said. But I did want to check in, and you agreed to share this story in a live performance on stage in front of hundreds of people. That's incredibly vulnerable. Looking back, any regrets? Are you glad you did it?
I'm very glad that I did it. However, I wish that I had learned before I got on stage that I have an eye disease and I couldn't read my paper with the stage lights hitting the paper in the screen protectors because of an eye disease I was diagnosed with afterwards. I ended up going from no glasses to bifocals because I was willing to go bifocals. They wanted to give me trifocals. So I will be wearing these, and I am blind as a bat.
So that discovery came around that time.
Yeah.
So I thought when you were reading your story that you were just caught up in emotion.
Oh no, I was having pregnant pauses because I was trying to figure out why I could not read the words. And then finally I thought, I don't know why I'm so caught up. I was like so angsty inside about not being able to read the words. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is my story. Why am I not just opening my mouth and telling my story? Like, I know this, it happened to me. I've peeled the onion so many times, the words don't hurt my eyes anymore. I don't cry through them anymore. So it was just really interesting to me that I was diagnosed with poor eyesight.
You played it off great. Like it just looked like you were like pausing for effect, and you totally carried it off.
I felt like it was like 30-second pauses. But when I was watching it back, I was like, that was a real long pause.
When you're the one on the stage, yeah,
it feels long.
It feels longer, but
Yeah.
it truly isn't in the scope of the full story.
We really should share that story with upcoming speakers because of all the work and all the writing and all the editing. At the end of the day, when you get up there, it's your story.
Right.
If you miss a line, nobody knows you missed the line but you and your sisters. Keep going, and at the end of the day, you're really just telling your story.
Open your mouth and let it out.
Yeah.
Right.
Take your own advice.
Yeah.
But what kind of stories have you been sharing since your night on the She Said stage?
Well, I don't know what you're talking about.
How has
Okay.
that kind of speaking experience empowered you?
Okay. I feel like I shared the two facets, actually. Like healing came. I think I really kind of actually put a period on the loss, right? And I was able to kind of move through that, and I have this peace. But also the child that learned that it was safe to be invisible or to be the comedian to make everybody happy and laughing. learned that it's okay to take up space. So I learned in the process of doing That's What She Said, it's okay to take up space. It's okay to advocate for yourself, and that doesn't make you a B word. I remember.
Why did everybody look at me when she said B word?
We're not allowed to say bad words.
That's true.
We are not. So you're not a B word in any way, shape, or form, but I think you have a powerful voice, and I think you do stand up for yourself, and I think that you are an incredible role model for that young lady that you are raising right now, and for moms everywhere who are struggling through loss or raising kids, or what did you call it? Too many plate syndrome?
Too many plates? Oh, too many plates.
Yeah.
It's not, yeah, too many plates.
So thank you for being a voice for women everywhere. And thank you for spending time with us today on the She Said Project podcast and reliving that one moment in time that I know is very powerful for me and hopefully for all of our friends listening today. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the She Said Project podcast. All materials contained in the podcast are the exclusive property of the She Said Project and That's What She Said LLC. For more information on our live shows, go to shesaidproject.com.